Imagine standing in the heart of a thriving metropolis. Towering pyramids pierce the jungle canopy. Markets buzz with thousands of voices. Astronomers chart the stars with precision that rivals modern science. Children play in plazas while priests perform sacred ceremonies. This is not a fantasy, this was reality for millions of Maya people over 1,000 years ago. But then, silence. Within just a century, the great cities were abandoned. Temples became tombs of vegetation. The plazas that once echoed with life now heard only the calls of howler monkeys. What could cause one of history's most sophisticated civilizations to simply vanish? Today, we redive in deep into one of archaeology's greatest mysteries, the collapse of the classic Maya civilization. And the answer might be more terrifying than you think, because it's a warning that echoes through time, directly to us. Now, it wasn't a single catastrophic event, like a volcanic eruption that wiped everyone out overnight. The Maya people didn't disappear. Their descendants are still with us today, carrying on rich cultural traditions. What vanished was their political and social structure, centered around these massive lowland cities. So, what happened? 4 years, theories flew around alien abductions, rampant disease, foreign invasion, but the real clues were hidden in the mud of ancient lake beds and inside the magnificent stone carvings the Maya left behind. Archaeologists began drilling core samples from lakes near the great Maya cities. Analyzing the layers of sediment, they discovered something startling. The pollen records showed a dramatic shift from lush rainforest to the layers also contained high concentrations of gypsum, a mineral that forms when a lake dries up. At the same time, inscriptions on monuments, which meticulously recorded the lives of kings and major historical events, suddenly stopped. The last dated monument in Calakmul, one of the most powerful Maya kingdoms, is from 909 AD. After that, nothing. The story written in stone and in the earth pointed to one culprit, a mega drought. But how could a drought bring down such a sophisticated civilization? The Maya were brilliant engineers. They built intricate systems of canals, reservoirs, and cisterns to manage water. However, the evidence suggests this wasn't just a dry spell. It was a series of intense, prolonged droughts lasting decades, one after another, over a period of about 100 years. Their water management systems, designed for seasonal dry spells, were simply overwhelmed. As the reservoirs ran dry, crop failures would have become rampant. Malnutrition would have weakened the population, making them more susceptible to disease. The king, whose authority was tied to his ability to communicate with the gods and ensure good harvests, would have lost all credibility. Imagine the social chaos. People would have turned on each other and on their leaders. Evidence of warfare and conflict at the end of the classic period supports this grim picture. Faced with starvation and social collapse, the people had no choice but to leave. They abandoned the cities their ancestors had built over centuries, scattering into smaller, more sustainable communities. This story is a powerful reminder that no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to the climate. The Maya collapse wasn't just about a lack of rain. It was about a society pushing its environment to the brink, leaving no margin for error when the climate inevitably changed. It's a chilling lesson from the past, reminding us of our own Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel! Today we're tackling one of history's greatest mysteries. What happened to the ancient Maya? You've probably heard the story of a brilliant civilization that built incredible pyramids, then vanished into thin air. Well, let's start by shattering that myth right now. The Maya didn't disappear. In fact, over 7 million Maya descendants are alive today, carrying on their rich languages and traditions across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras. But something catastrophic did happen. Between 800 and 1000 CE, the Maya abandoned their greatest cities, the very hearts of their civilization. To understand how big of a deal this was, you need to know just how advanced they were. While Europe was slogging through the Dark Ages, the Maya were absolute geniuses. They independently invented the concept of zero, a mathematical leap that Europeans wouldn't make for another 500 years. Their calendar was so precise, it is only off from our modern calculations by a few seconds per year. Think about their cities. Tikal in modern Guatemala was a sprawling metropolis, possibly home to 100,000 people, making it larger than London at the time. Its rival, Calakmul, was just as magnificent. These were not primitive villages. They were sophisticated urban centers with complex water management systems to capture and store every drop of rain. They had multi-story palaces decorated with intricate carvings, massive ball courts for sacred games, and astronomical observatories that could predict eclipses with stunning accuracy. Their trade network stretched all the way from central Mexico down to Costa Rica. The Maya were master farmers, growing cacao, maize, beans, and squashed with advanced agricultural techniques. They even created rubber 1,000 years before Charles Goodyear, and their writing system was the most sophisticated in the entire pre-Columbian Americas, with over 800 beautiful hieroglyphic symbols telling the stories of their kings and gods. But then, around the year 800 CE, the carved stone inscriptions just stop. The construction of new monuments grinds to a halt. And within a few generations, cities that had thrived for centuries fell completely silent, reclaimed by the jungle. So the real question isn't, did they disappear? But why did they leave? What could possibly cause such a widespread and rapid The mysterious collapse of the mighty Mayan civilization has stumped historians for over a century. What could possibly bring such a sophisticated society to its knees? For years, dramatic theories dominated the conversation. Was it a brutal invasion, a catastrophic plague, or a violent peasant revolt against the ruling elite? Let's dive into why each of these exciting ideas, while captivating, just doesn't hold up. First, the invasion theory. The idea is that foreign warriors swept through the Mayan heartland, conquering city after city. It sounds like a blockbuster movie, right? The problem is, archaeologists have scoured the ruins for decades and found zero evidence of a conquering army. There are no layers of ash from burned cities that would signal a massive military campaign. We don't find troves of foreign artifacts suggesting new rulers took over. The invaders simply left no footprints. So, scratch that one off the list. Next up, the disease hypothesis. This theory suggests a devastating plague, an ancient pandemic, wiped out the population. It's a terrifying thought. But when epidemics sweep through a society, they leave behind clear, grim evidence. Mass graves. And across the vast Mayan lands, we just don't find them. Plus, diseases tend to hit hard and fast, causing a rapid population crash. The Mayan decline, however, was a slow, grinding process that stretched over more than 100 years. It wasn't a sudden cataclysm. Finally, we have the peasant revolt theory. This one paints a picture of the common people, tired of the demands of their priest-kings, rising up in a bloody rebellion. It's a compelling story of class struggle. While there were likely tensions between the classes, this theory has a major flaw. Why would people abandon their homes and cities entirely? If they successfully overthrew their rulers, wouldn't they just install new leaders and continue living in the places their families had known for generations? It doesn't explain the empty cities. Each of these theories fell apart under the weight of scientific evidence. They were too simple, too dramatic. The real story, pieced together through decades of painstaking research, is far more complex and, believe it or not, carries a stark warning for our own modern world. The truth wasn't about a single. Ever wondered what truly happened to the great Maya civilization? For centuries, the abandoned jungle cities of Tikal and Calakmul posed one of history's greatest mysteries. Theories ranged from alien abduction to a mysterious plague, but the real answer is far more complex and terrifying, and it was found in a very unusual place: the bottom of ancient lakes. In the 1990s and 2000s, scientists started drilling deep into the lakebeds of the Maya lowland. These long tubes of mud, called sediment cores, act like time machines. They hold a chemical history of the environment going back thousands of years, and what they revealed was a climate catastrophe. Between the years 800 and 1000, the Maya region suffered its most severe drought in 7,000 years. This wasn't just a dry spell. It was a series of intense, multi-decade droughts that hit one after another. Rainfall levels plummeted by as much as 40%. Now, imagine this. The Maya were master engineers. Their cities were designed with sophisticated systems of canals, reservoirs, and cisterns, specifically to capture and store rainwater. But when the rains simply stopped coming, Their brilliant water systems turned into useless, monuments' elaborate infrastructure for a resource that had vanished. Chemical markers in the lake cores, like gypsum, proved that water levels dropped dramatically. At the same time, high levels of titanium in the sediment point to massive soil erosion. This was a clear sign that forests were being cut down at an alarming rate, likely a desperate attempt to clear more land for failing crops. But this climate disaster didn't happen in a vacuum. It struck a landscape that the Maya themselves had fundamentally altered. At their peak, the Maya civilization supported millions of people, with population densities that rivaled some modern countries. To feed everyone, they had cleared huge areas of tropical forests. Pollen trapped in those same lake cores tells the story perfectly. Tree pollen drops off a cliff, while pollen from crops and grasses skyrockets. The Maya were deforesting their world unsustainably. This created a deadly feedback loop. Fewer trees meant the local environment held less moisture. Less moisture intensified the droughts. More intense droughts led to crop failures, which forced them to clear even more forests to plant more fields, which in turn made the droughts even worse. They were caught in a vicious cycle of their own making. As the environment buckled, so did Maya society. The Maya weren't a single, unified empire. They were a collection of powerful, competing city-states, locked in a constant dance of alliances and warfare. Stone inscriptions from this period show a sudden explosion of conflict. Kings, who once bragged about constructing grand temples, started carving monuments that celebrated battles and captured enemies. Archaeologists have found evidence of defensive walls being thrown up around cities that had been open for centuries. This wasn't the ritualized warfare of their golden age. This was a desperate, brutal fight for survival over dwindling food and water. The authority of the godlike kings, who claimed to speak with the gods and maintain cosmic order, began to crumble. If a king couldn't make it rain, what was his purpose? This is where the collapse becomes a cascade. The entire Maya civilization was built on a very specific model. Dense cities, supported by intensive agriculture, all managed by a powerful elite who controlled the water systems. When the drought struck, this very model became their undoing. The cities couldn't survive without food from the surrounding farmlands. The farmlands couldn't produce without the centralized organization from the cities. When one piece of this interconnected system failed, the whole thing began to break apart. Trade routes that had thrived for centuries vanished. Skilled artisans found no one to buy their pottery or jade. The incredible astronomical knowledge, which required generations of careful observation, was lost as the great observatories were abandoned. People didn't all die in one place. They scattered. They abandoned the failing cities and moved toward the few places where water could still be found along rivers, on the coasts, or up in the highlands. The magnificent lowland cities emptied out, not because everyone died, but because everyone left, desperately searching for a way to survive. By 900 CE, the once mighty city of Tikal was a ghost town. A century later, most of the great classic Maya cities had been swallowed by the jungle, their stone pyramids and plazas, silent witnesses to a civilization that pushed its environment and itself past the breaking point. The story of the Maya isn't just ancient history. It's a powerful lesson about the fragile balance between. Now, here's the part that should make us all deeply uncomfortable. The Maya didn't collapse because they were primitive or somehow ignorant. In fact, it was the exact opposite. They collapsed precisely because they were so sophisticated, so advanced that they could support massive populations and transform their environment on an enormous scale. Does that sound at all familiar? Today, we face remarkably similar pressures, just on a global scale. Let's look at the parallels. First, climate change. Just like the Maya, we're experiencing major climate disruption, but ours is accelerating much faster. Droughts are getting more intense all over the world, and water scarcity is threatening billions of people. Then, there's environmental degradation. We are clearing forests at rates that would make even the Maya at their peak look small. We're draining aquifers, eroding topsoil, and changing the very ecosystems we rely on for survival. Our modern civilization is also far more interconnected and complex than classic Maya society ever was. Think about it. Your food probably traveled thousands of miles to get to your plate. Our supply chains cross entire continents, and our cities are completely dependent on resources from far away. This amazing efficiency is also a major vulnerability. And what happens when things get tight? Political stress. As resources become scarce, we're seeing more conflict, more nationalism, and more competition instead of cooperation, the exact same pattern the Maya experienced. But here's the crucial difference, the part that gives us a fighting chance. We know what happened to the Maya. We can read the warning signs they left behind, written in lake sediment and abandoned cities. The Maya didn't have climate science. They didn't have global communication networks. They didn't have access to alternative technologies or resources beyond their immediate region. We do. This means the Maya story isn't just a cautionary tale, it's also a roadmap. Recent archaeological work shows that some Maya communities actually adapted successfully. They developed more sustainable farming practices, diversified their crops, managed their populations, and ultimately survived the collapse. The Maya who thrived were the ones who saw the warning signs and had the courage to change course. Those who clung to the old systems, who just kept building bigger temples and waging endless wars, saw their magnificent cities turned. Deep in the jungle, the great Maya cities still stand, silent witnesses to what happens when a civilization pushes its environment too far. For centuries, they thrived, building incredible monuments and developing complex systems. But climate change and deforestation led to their decline. It's a powerful warning from the past. But here's the most important part of the story. The Maya people didn't vanish. They survived. They adapted. Today, millions of their descendants carry on traditions, thousands of years old, speaking their ancestral languages and keeping their culture alive. Civilizations can be fragile, but humanity is incredibly resilient. The Maya couldn't see the future written in the sediment beneath their feet. We can. The question is, will we learn from their story before we're forced to write our own? Thanks for watching. And if you found this interesting, don't forget to subscribe for more.